Okay, I think we are. I think we are live. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Mark Bermingham. I'm actually part of the product marketing team here at NinjaOne, and today's session is about transforming backup from a fragmented reactive chore into a unified strategic advantage that can protect your entire business. Before we dive in, just a couple of quick notes. First, a very happy Juneteenth to everyone celebrating. We are grateful that you've chosen to spend part of your day with us today. I'm joined today by two of the people who helped lead this transformation. First, Rahul Hirani, Chief Product Officer at NinjaOne, and Charif El-Anseri, Chief Executive Officer of Dropsuite. They're on board to answer questions, share insights, perspective, and discuss what comes next as part of this transformation. Finally, throughout today's session, I encourage you to ask any question you have. There is no topic that's off limits. We have got a couple of our brilliant product managers in the background, Lauren Brunson and Dan Myers from NinjaOne. They're available to answer any question you might have. Again, feel free to get in the weeds with these two. Now let's get into why we're here. So today's session is about one thing. It's about unified backup and how NinjaOne's acquisition of Dropsuite helps us deliver this in a scalable, compliant, and incredibly simple to use way. What I plan to cover quickly, just to set the stage, is I'll first talk about the modern backup challenge that IT teams are facing today. The landscape has certainly changed dramatically, and it's getting worse. Then we're going to unpack a little bit about why NinjaOne acquired Dropsuite. We'll talk a little bit about why this decision impacts, or how this decision impacts our long-term strategy. Rahul and Charif are certainly going to share some insights here. And finally, we're going to talk about what this means for our customers, for our partners, and hopefully for our future adopters. So let's start by acknowledging something I think that we're all feeling. IT has never been more complex, and it's getting harder. The environments you manage are sprawling. There's endpoints, there's servers, there's cloud, there's SaaS platforms, and they don't all sit neatly behind firewalls anymore. They're distributed, dynamic, and constantly evolving. And this is actually getting worse. It's accelerating. At the same time, the threat landscape is relentless. Ransomware is no longer something you can ignore. It's no longer really a question of if, it's a matter of when. And alongside this cyber risk, you now have this increasing pressure from compliance regulations, from audit demands, from business continuity expectations. For many organizations, their backup strategies are still very fragmented. You likely have one solution managing endpoint. You might have another managing servers, a third perhaps managing Google Workspace or Microsoft 365, and you may have nothing in place at all for long-term email retention. This isn't just inefficient, it's actually dangerous. So fragmented backup strategies can create serious operational friction. They certainly create inefficiency, and they may introduce some serious blind spots that can bite you over time. You can't respond quickly if your data is siloed. You can't prove compliance if your retention policies aren't enforced consistently. And you certainly can't build a resilient infrastructure on top of disjointed point solutions. The reality is most teams are flying a little blind when it comes to having a cohesive backup strategy. That's exactly what we set out to solve with this acquisition. This is the exact problem that I want to have Rahul and Charif weigh in on. So at this point, I'm going to start actually asking them some questions. I want to get some perspective from the both of you on what this acquisition means, why it matters for our customers, and what it means moving forward. Charif, maybe I start with you. Dropsuite has built a strong global reputation in the SaaS backup and email archiving space. What made NinjaOne the right partner for the next chapter of your growth?
Mark, thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Really appreciate it. At Dropsuite, we built a phenomenal point solution for SaaS backup, as you mentioned, but we are living increasingly in a platform world, and we did see the writing on the wall in terms of we need to be part of a platform. While we were not actively looking to be acquired, we actually started our relationship with NinjaOne as a partnership. And throughout this partnership journey, which started more than a year and a half ago, negotiations, integrations, etc., we were really impressed with the NinjaOne team. The team themselves, the humans, the product, the customer focus. We saw a strong cultural alignment between the two companies in terms of putting customers first, in terms of building a simple, secure, and scalable solutions and products for the IT teams. And both companies really cared deeply about our people. So when the partnership evolved into an acquisition, I personally was very, very supportive of this move. I really wanted to make sure that Dropsuite team, and equally importantly, our customers and partners had the right home for a brighter future.
So question actually over to you, Rahul. So backup has long been part of NinjaOne's portfolio, but how does this acquisition support NinjaOne's broader mission of delivering modern IT operations through a single console? And maybe touch on a little bit about why Dropsuite was the right partner.
Yeah, great question, Mark. And thank you everyone for joining and listening to our discussion about this today. Backup has long been a part of the Ninja portfolio, but before that, we were primarily an endpoint management company for the last 10 years. And the problem we saw in endpoint management was you have this spread or span of control issue where IT estates today include everything from Windows workstations to Android devices to IoT, Linux, Mac. The list is increasing, and then the added complexity of BYOD as well. And every technician's problem is that they have this issue where you have this constant proliferation of number of devices, and it's up to them entirely to find a way to bring order to that chaos. And every solution that they bring on adds more complexity to everything from their day-to-day to their planning processes. And what Ninja was attempting to deliver on the endpoint side, and has done a fantastic job of doing so far, is bringing that proverbial single pane of glass and single ability to express an instruction set to all of those devices. And as we moved into the backup space and have been for the past few years, we saw that exact same problem appearing in backup. You have endpoint backup, you have SaaS backup, you have a variety of types of backup that is going to pertain to, the business challenges you're dealing with. And the same problem, different point solutions, added complexity, different ways in which you have to express your business policy or your IT policies in those tools, gaps, risks. And so what we found increasingly as we were going to market with our backup solution is that prospects and customers were telling us alike that they were looking for something more holistic. And so that's, as Charif had referenced earlier, why we initially did the diligence on Dropsuite as a partner, something that we could sell as a bundle with endpoint backup. And as that caught fire and really took off, we decided internally after some strategic conversations that we really wanted to own this IP. We'd done the diligence on Dropsuite again, but what really sealed the deal, so to speak, is in working with that team after having inked the partnership agreement. Sending them feature requests for improving their API so we could work better with them, seeing their attention to detail on the user experience, which is something that is core to what we do, ease of use, and in general, making sure that our user experience is best in class. It was a no-brainer that this was a good fit in terms of culture, principles, values, the general sense of how customer-driven and kind of ravenous they are for customer feedback, that ultimately it was just a matter of kind of when. So that's what kind of brought this to be.
Thanks, Rahul. Let me just double down on what I think Rahul was just talking about, right? So now with this acquisition of Dropsuite, NinjaOne can now offer a single unified solution to protect anything you have from a backup perspective: endpoints, servers, Microsoft 365, Google Workspace. And critically now, with Dropsuite, we can provide email archiving and long-term retention. So with this solution, you get things like automated protection policy that you can configure in minutes. In fact, we can have you up and running with a backup solution in under 5 minutes. You have immutable encrypted storage that's built for ransomware defense. And you have a single console that gives you full control, full visibility, and hopefully full peace of mind. And it's really important to highlight that this is not a bolt-on. It's not a reseller integration. It's a connected, scalable extension of the NinjaOne automated endpoint management platform. It's designed to help you simplify not only your backup architecture and consolidate vendors, but also to manage your entire user experience from onboarding through the potential need for recovery. So let me ask some more questions. Let me start with you, Rahul. With this unified approach, how do you envision customers simplifying their backup operations, especially those that are potentially juggling multiple point solutions today?
Yeah, as I was saying, every solution you employ adds some complexity. And like I said, that's both at the strategic level with how that policy gets expressed, your IT policy, your backup policy, your general business policy, compliance policies get expressed in each one of these tools. And the increase in complexity causes things like you were saying a moment ago, Mark, gaps, risks, lost time, to say nothing of just cognitive load for your technicians as they are trying to manage backup operations or restore operations. We found this over and over again in the endpoint space. And as I said, we are seeing this in the backup space. And the more opportunity you have to consolidate all of those tools into fewer and fewer and fewer tools, the better off you're going to be. That's putting it simply.
Rahul, another question for you maybe. Can you talk about how automation and policy-driven configuration work across endpoints, servers, and SaaS data in this unified model?
Yeah, absolutely. If you have been following NinjaOne or are familiar with the product, then you'll know that when it comes to device management, everything is kind of housed in what we call the policy. We have device policies, and that is extended to include things like backup policies, endpoint policies, and now SaaS backup policies. The policy is essentially the instruction set for how you want Ninja as a system to handle a device or any other piece of IT infrastructure. It will tell our system how you want, for example, the device patched or the frequency at which the device should be backed up, the software you want installed on it, the policy around remote access for that device. And now that's extending to also include things like user backup as well on the Dropsuite side. So as I was saying, part of this complexity is just in translating your business requirements or your IT requirements into how your tools should be functioning. And the policy is the way in which we adapt all of that information and begin managing devices or users or IT infrastructure and operations on our customers' behalf. And in doing so, that constitutes one significant means of automation. Afterwards, what your IT technicians are probably ending up doing is dealing with exceptions, things that don't fit the mold, or alternatively, states in which users or devices or copies get left where they no longer fit a state that you would consider to be healthy. And that's where your technicians may need to wade in and remediate in some fashion. Or if you get, let's say, a ticket or a request for a restore, they're really doing the active and I would argue more strategic work. And gradually over time, they're going to see more and more things that they can adapt into the policy, which is kind of the steady state or the main sequence of things as you expect them to operate.
Yeah, Rahul, thank you. Very, very thorough answer. Let me ask you another question that's probably top of mind for a lot of folks. With the growing role of AI and analytics, are there plans to introduce smarter insights or proactive recommendations around things like backup health or storage trends, recovery risks, or maybe other innovations?
Yeah, definitely. We see IT as transformative we see AI as transformative in IT, as it is in many other industries. That said, we have been taking a conservative approach in IT, in for AI for IT. Pardon my tongue-tiedness here. We have definitely been taking a conservative approach. What that means is that we have seen that there are a multitude of ways to implement AI incorrectly or unsafely for our customers, and very few in which we can rely on AI to do the right thing. We work with very heavy duty tools here. If we get something wrong, it could sink an entire IT estate for our customers. And with the tens of thousands of customers we're working with, that's a huge risk we take on and a general responsibility we take very seriously. We do have an AI team internally. We've been building out AI and data competencies for quite some time now, and we've released a few AI features. But as I said, we have a very high viability threshold for any of these features to see the day of light or the light of day. And that is now extending to what we're doing with Dropsuite. And I would say, expect some interesting things there. But we have looked into everything from anomaly detection with backup. We've looked into risk-based backup. There are quite a few opportunities there, and we'll be evaluating and I want to say scrutinizing those opportunities for how realistic they end up being and how sensible it is and how I would say ready the technology is for AI to be implemented in those areas. But that is a discipline we have internally and one that we are I would say constantly on the lookout for new opportunities to explore with it.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Rahul. Charif, let me transition over to you a little bit. So with Dropsuite's technology now integrated into NinjaOne's endpoint management platform, where do you see the biggest opportunity to create impact and value for customers?
It's really important to keep in mind that the definition of endpoint today is very different from the way it used to be. When we think about endpoint today, it's actually the user, right? And that includes all their data, includes their identity, and of course, it includes the device as well. So with the approach that we're having now, I mean, keep in mind that we're seeing and continue to see a phenomenal growth in SaaS applications. We're seeing bring your own devices. We're seeing different ways of working, remote, hybrid, etc. And with that, there's a change in customer expectations. So it's very, very critical to create a simple, unified, one solution that's easy to deploy, that's also fully automated for the IT teams to delight their customers. We want to streamline the IT operations and at the same time increasing critically the data protection coverage, through SaaS and the devices, as we mentioned earlier. This creates a massive opportunity for us to expand the business, to delight our customers, and of course to expand the serviceable addressable market that we serve today and will go beyond that in the future.
All right, great. Charif, maybe one final question on this slide. Can you maybe talk a little bit more about why NinjaOne is the right vendor to deliver this solution? I think I have Rahul's perspective on this. I'd love to hear yours.
When you look into the industry, we see all kinds of I would say wannabe platforms. They stitch and combine multiple solutions, maybe through acquisitions. They put what Sal, our CEO at NinjaOne calls it the SSO glue, and then they claim they have a platform. But when you hear what Rahul is talking about and how deliberate the NinjaOne team and how they think of their offering as a true platform, that's where every single detail is being considered, and every single perspective from an IT team is taken into consideration. It's a different level of platform. When you also look at how customer obsessed both NinjaOne and Dropsuite and now combined we are, I mean, just to give you an example, both companies, and this is a pure coincidence, we have 98% customer satisfaction scores. We cover and we measure our response rates in minutes, not in hours and not in days, right? So when you think about this, the thoughtfulness of the product, the culture that we have that really revolves around the customer, we're really building something special here at NinjaOne.
Yeah, thank you very much, Charif. Let me flip over to the next slide. So when most people think backup, they actually think recovery, but today backup is about more than just getting data back. It's about proving that you potentially retained it correctly, that it wasn't tampered with, and potentially that you can present it on demand if the legal or regulatory moment calls for it. This is where Dropsuite brings tremendous power to the NinjaOne platform. With the archiver function, you get legal holds on email communications, you get e-discovery to quickly search across millions of records, and you get the ability to apply and enforce policy-based retention to produce audit-ready documentation. For industries like financial services, healthcare, education, legal, this is non-negotiable. But increasingly, even organizations without formal mandates are recognizing the critical need for data governance and recognizing that it is potentially a huge competitive advantage. Let me ask a few more questions on this topic. Charif, compliance, as I think I just defined it, can be a huge differentiator. Can you walk us through a typical use case where archiver and long-term retention have helped a customer meet regulatory demands or legal hold requirements?
Sure, Mark, I'll be happy to. But before that, I want to say that the way you described it is really phenomenal. We sincerely believe that any business that seriously cares about their operational resilience should be using the archiving SKU from Dropsuite. One really important product differentiator that we have at Dropsuite is we combine backup and compliance and email archiving / compliance in one offering, meaning that our customers and partners can buy one SKU from us that takes care of their SaaS backup needs as well as their compliance needs. And as you mentioned, regulation is only increasing in complexity and extending into more and more verticals. We're also seeing different security and compliance standards and frameworks. Think of CMMC for Department of Defense. Think of CIS V8 and many, many other standards and frameworks. So when you look at all of the above, it's really important to consider compliance as part of a data protection strategy for any business, no matter what vertical they belong to. And because we're talking about how compliance can extend beyond your typical regulated industries, I'm going to give you an example that really cuts across. So just imagine a company, let's say 500 employees or 5,000 employees, they get a loss, they are sued. Right? There's a lawsuit there, right? And what they need to do is they need to quickly give access to either their internal or external lawyers, counsel, to be able to sift through the data and find what needs to be found and present it in the court. If this business is using our archiving SKU, they can, within seconds, give access to their lawyers. Then the lawyers will be able to put things on legal hold. They could be able to start doing e-discovery and search within seconds or minutes once they get access. And they will be able to do this in a very productive manner. And also, of course, save money and reduce stress in the meantime. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard it from customers and partners on how this specific feature, in case of losses, has been incredibly useful for them in that time of distress.
Thanks,
I want
Sharif.
to add one more thing. Like I mentioned, because we believe that compliance and archiving should cut across multiple verticals, today, more than 40% of our customers are actually choosing the archiving SKU with Dropsuite.
Wow, that's an
Over to
impressive
you.
stat.
Yes, indeed.
So I think you probably touched on this, but let me be very pragmatic and make sure that I answer all the questions that we've prepared. What are some of the top backup or compliance blind spots that you see organizations struggle with, and how does this solution close some of those gaps?
Yeah, I mean, it's really important to note we still see a lot of organizations, and I'm talking of organizations of all sizes, small, medium, and large, still not backing up their SaaS applications. There's this massive, I would say, perception gap in the market where some people think if data is in the cloud, then it's protected, which is really very far away from the truth. So I would say that's one of the biggest things that we see in the market. And the risks, are growing, whether it's from cybersecurity and ransomware, or even the mundane data loss incidents that can go wrong every day in any company, right? So that's a big one. Now, for those companies that back up, we talked about how regulation is popping up everywhere and how it's really important to combine backup and compliance. I would say that's a blind spot. The second one is we sometimes see IT administrators when they buy backup from us, what they do is that they set retention policies for forever. While this sounds good as a quote-unquote safety measure, but it's really important to know that once you do that and you're retaining data indefinitely, you are creating extra risk, whether it's legal or regulatory, on that business. So it's very important to be thoughtful and intentional when it comes to setting retention policies. And of course, at Dropsuite, we give you that ability to do that and make sure you set the right retention policy for the organization. Last but not least, we continuously hear horror stories about IT administrators trying to restore something in that point of time of emergency and something fails. So it's really important to conduct regular backups and do restore testing on a regular basis. And of course, that's something that can easily be done at Dropsuite. Now, last but not least, and this might be a little bit controversial, we believe that you should not put your eggs in one basket, meaning that if you're using Microsoft 365 for your organization, you should ideally not be backing up your data in the same ecosystem, i.e. Azure. You are much better served by having it backed up in another, whether it's on-prem or by another cloud like Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud. That's something also we offer at Dropsuite.
Great, very thorough answer, Charif. Thank you.
Sure.
Rahul, let me ask you a quick question. How is governance shaping the roadmap for NinjaOne, and how does this thought fit into NinjaOne's broader goal of delivering modern IT operations from a single console?
Yeah, I just wanted to, as a quick aside, thank you so much to everyone for the questions. We are churning through them as quickly as we can here. There's a very high volume, and I speak on behalf of everyone, both on stage and backstage. We really appreciate the engagement. There are a lot of great ones in here. No changes to the endpoint backup roadmap. I don't believe we're doing a demo today, but I know the team is kind of going through all of them behind the scenes. So thank you for your patience as well. To answer your question, Mark, how is governance shaping the Ninja roadmap? Compliance and governance, I'd say compliance specifically, has always been a very big driver for IT operations and IT strategy. Especially for more regulated industries, it is the driver for a lot of the activities that are taken in by the IT team. I think that when it comes to configuration, controls, change management, Ninja is in a really advantageous place to play in the compliance market, and we've kind of been playing in the compliance market for a long time, just as I'm going to say like a point of actuation or assessment, more informally, because we don't have kind of an embedded compliance solution within our product today. That is something that has been on our mind, admittedly. So I would say expect interesting things on the horizon when it comes to compliance. And yeah, from your previous question to Charif on how Dropsuite and the solution offered there plays into the compliance story. That's definitely was a very interesting thing from our standpoint when we were looking at this as an acquisition opportunity for really, jumpstarting or putting us in a really advantageous toehold for doing big things in the compliance market. But as I said, Ninja's in a really interesting place from an endpoint management side for compliance. And now we kind of see an extension already through this acquisition into more than just endpoint for more broad, I want to say broader IT footprint. And the compliance applications there, I think, are pretty straightforward.
Right. Yeah. Thank you very much, Rahul. Let's talk about the impact of this. What does this mean for our customers? It really boils down to creating a single solution for backing up and archiving all critical business data from a backup perspective. It means stronger protection against things like ransomware. It can mean a streamlined automated workflow from endpoint provisioning, right? Onboarding an endpoint all the way through the possible need to recover that endpoint in the event of something really bad happening. So this is very much part and central to NinjaOne's thought around a comprehensive automated endpoint management platform. It certainly, right, with the acquisition of Dropsuite, provides an easier path to things like audit readiness and policy enforcement. For MSPs, this enables you to become a more strategic partner for your clients, not just reacting to their problems, but proactively managing things like data compliance, things like resilience, ensuring that you can recover them with confidence in the event something goes bad. Charif, let me ask you a question related to this topic. Many MSPs and IT teams still today think of backup as just insurance. What message would you send to them about the strategic value of unified data protection?
Mark, I have to say that when we think of unified backup as just insurance, it's like somebody owns this beautiful mansion, but is just using one bedroom in the mansion. When we think about a truly unified backup, like the one that we've been talking about in this webinar, we're talking about business resilience. We're talking about being able to go back to business as soon as possible. We're talking about making the lives of the IT teams better, right? More efficiency, less complexity, better productivity, a single pane of glass, as Rahul mentioned earlier. Compliance made simple, and you can be up and running with or without compliance in 5 minutes, like you mentioned, Mark, earlier. And again, from an MSP standpoint, the way you position yourself in front of your customers is a lot more strategic and a lot more proactive, and that really bodes well for your business. Bottom line, having a simple, scalable, and secure unified backup is a lot more than just insurance.
Yeah, thanks, Charif. One more question for you. You've worked with customers, partners, and resellers around the world. Do you see this as a transformational solution around the data protection landscape?
Absolutely, and I can tell you that from my personal point of view, this combined solution is transformational because it's really about simplification at scale. We are offering, and we're offering even more unified visibility and control for IT teams, whether they're internal or whether they are MSPs, something that they are really looking for and they absolutely deserve. We're offering one platform to protect, to monitor, to manage everything from individual laptops and mobiles to critical SaaS applications. This is really exciting and transformational from my perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Charif. Rahul, let me ask you one final question. For IT teams making a business case internally to consider consolidating backup into NinjaOne, what are some of the key value points or ROI drivers that they should focus on?
Yeah, great question. I think the first one is quite obvious here. Like, is this backup solution going to meet your requirements when you think of RTO and RPO, or when you think of, the breadth of information that you're going to need to back up? Is this an offering that meets those requirements? And I think more than before, it is going to have a larger addressable market than we had prior with just endpoint backup, which was a key driving point behind the acquisition. But of course, that's an obvious question you need to ask yourself. The second is regarding security risks and just general risk mitigation. As I mentioned earlier, there is essentially a cognitive tax and also a operational tax to having multiple point solutions, and the span of control issues that inherently causes. And so part of that ROI is really how much of that risk is acceptable from or part of that ROI calculation is how much of that risk is acceptable. If that's going to cause or put you in a potential situation where the bottom falls out of your operations, is that something that you are capable of withstanding, for lack of a better way of putting it? Then
Right.
the other side of the ROI calculation is, the cost reduction. Like how much is how much is the wallet consolidation, would you say, underneath a single vendor going to help, as opposed to having to negotiate and maintain vendor relationships with multiple as opposed to a single one? And, that's not to say just the upfront charge is the only cost that you should be aware of. There's obviously the overall total cost of ownership of these point solutions or single solution or whatever you're choosing to go with here. There's the fact that your policies are going to change. You're going to have that reflected in each one of these tools. There's the reporting capabilities if you're looking at multiple dashboards and kind of trying to mentally merge that information together to get a good picture of, like, am I green? Am I red? Am I somewhere in between? Some action required. All of that needs to be taken into consideration for a holistic understanding of, or a holistic, let's say, ROI assessment of a tool like ours, certainly.
Right. Thanks, Rahul. I'm going to flip over to the last slide we have, and maybe just before we close this down, Charif, I don't know if you have any closing thoughts or any perspective or conversation that I haven't brought up.
I shared with you earlier about a very interesting number, where in May, which is, by the way, before the transaction officially closed with NinjaOne, we achieved the highest growth month in the history of the company. And from our perspective, this is a clear vote of confidence from our customers and partners about how excited they are about this acquisition. And I can tell you that last week I was in Denver in a trade show where it happened that both NinjaOne and Dropsuite were in the same trade show. And the positive vibes we got and the happiness from our partners in that show was really very humbling for us. So I cannot tell you how excited we are about the future and how we can delight our customers and partners and take the platform to the next level. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Charif. Rahul, I'll give you the same opportunity. Anything that we should mention one more time or double down on to close this out?
I just want to say I'm really, like, if you've found your way to this webinar through Ninja channels, or if you've been following the Ninja journey, you'll know we've been going through quite a bit of growth lately, and I'm really proud of the growth that we have here, and I'm very excited with what we are going to be able to do with the Dropsuite team, now a part of Ninja and its story. There's no secret to how we're growing. We listen to our customers, and we do our best in delivering what they ask for with good business practices and treating them like the businesses with going concerns that they are. If you're making a software purchase decision, it's a long-term investment these days in not just the product that you see, but also the product that you expect to be coming next year and the following year. We've been able to maintain kind of a startup mindset and a quick twitch response muscle, I would say, with what our customers tell us. And the Dropsuite acquisition is a part of that story. Like we, found our way to Charif and found our way to Dropsuite and ultimately found our way to this acquisition based on feedback that we get from you in all shapes and forms, quantitative and qualitative. But I'm very excited with what the future holds. Like Charif has been saying, there's a lot of cultural overlap between the teams, more than just a little. There's a ton of cultural overlap between the teams. If you make an investment decision with Ninja, we can get you up and running in 5 minutes or less with endpoint backup. And now we are happy to say that we are capable of doing the exact same thing on the SaaS backup side as well, courtesy of all of the good work that Charif and team have put in and will continue to put in into the Dropsuite products. We're focused on raising the bar for the market, delivering a superior product at a reasonable price. We're not perfect, but we're getting better every day. And I'm honored that you spent some time with us today to learn more about it.
Yeah, I'll double down on that. First, let me express my deep thanks to both you, Rahul and Charif. Thanks very much for the time and really diligent answers. Thank you also, everyone listening in today, for your time and attention. We appreciate you spending some time with us today. And I'm just close with the fact that NinjaOne continues to build on its singular mission of simplifying the hardest parts of IT. I think this is a great example of actually a tremendous step in that direction. If you want to dive deeper into what this looks like, we would be delighted to have a conversation with you. I know there's been a ton of questions come over the wall. If we didn't get to you, we'll try to find you. If not, please find us. We are always very, very happy to talk. We're very excited about this journey and we'll be honored if you want to take the next steps with us. With that, I'll close this out. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And again, thank you very much for your time and attention today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, guys. Thanks. Thanks all.